As far as I can tell, the 2020 election cycle's already over, and I gotta be honest, I don't think anyone even wants to watch this video about Joe Biden because we've got other more important things to deal with. But let's be honest, there's supposed to be a presidential election happening. Several of the Democratic primaries have already been postponed. For all intents and purposes, Joe Biden is the nominee, but now people are curious, where is Joe Biden? He's gone. Last week, he did a digital town hall that fell apart. He muttered and rambled and walked off camera, had no idea what was happening. And apparently, they've been talking about having him do virtual addresses to the nation to talk about what's happening, but they can't quite figure out how to work the dadgum internet. I'm not exaggerating. That's basically the issue. They're trying to figure out how to do teleconferencing. They don't know how. Donald Trump has already beaten Joe Biden. Now, has Donald Trump won re-election? I don't know. I do think in the long run, if Trump does this right, and many Americans think he is doing it right, this will absolutely secure him re-election. Now, there's a big risk. The market is tanking. His approval rating did drop a bit. But in the past couple of days, several polls have come out, now 3, showing that the majority of Americans approve of the way Trump is handling the global pandemic. This is just absolute good news for Trump. In a time of crisis, he's showing that he's doing a good job and he's receiving praise for it. So let's dive right in and take a look at what's going on with the mystery. Has anyone seen Joe? Glenn Greenwald and others wonder why Biden appears to be avoiding the media. But the media is the big point now. Donald Trump is effectively running against the coronavirus. Joe Biden is irrelevant. Now, personally, I think even if Trump does a bad job over the coronavirus, I think a lot of Americans aren't going to blame him for what's happening. It's an act of nature, and Trump is apparently doing his best. But would they really think Joe Biden could do a better job than Trump could right now? Look, even if Trump fails and messes up, I'm not confident Joe Biden could handle this. So what it really comes down to is the media. Because try as he might, even though many in the media have praised Trump, Democratic governors like Newsom and Cuomo have praised Trump. Even Ilhan Omar has praised Trump. Even with all of this, the media is still coming after him. In a rather shocking tell, CNN said that Trump was peddling unsubstantiated hope. Oh, heavens. Oh, no, the president is trying to stop Americans from feeling depressed and scared by offering them up potential solutions and being optimistic. Is there something wrong with being optimistic? I'm going to show you the stories where they actually went after Trump. And I'm going to break down some reality for you. But first, we need to ask the important questions like, where is Joe Biden? He's gone. And look, he's not even campaigning anymore, as far as I can tell. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you would like to support my work. Let's be real, man. People are losing their jobs like crazy. I'm eternally grateful that the industry I work in, I work for myself. I do commentary. It's digital. It uses the internet. I can work from home. But the reality is, YouTube is actively choosing to demonetize basically every video that I make on this subject, and they're actually suppressing the content. So there's not much I can do about it, but I entirely understand. You know what? I want you all to take care of yourselves and your friends and families first before you consider supporting me. So here's what you can do. Share this video or just subscribe and hit the notification bell because that really does help me, continue my business. But let's get back to the news and figure out what's going on with creepy, sleepy Uncle Joe. The Daily Caller says, former Vice President and Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden has seemingly been quiet in recent days as the coronavirus pandemic has escalated in the U.S. Biden has largely been out of the public eye since Sunday's Democratic presidential debate, leading #WhereIsJoe to trend Friday morning on Twitter. Joe Biden's this tweet from Glenn Greenwald is absolutely glorious. Glenn, you nailed it. He says, Joe Biden's omnipresence, steely calm, and inspiring leadership has shown the U.S. what a real president does in times of crisis. Oh, wait, has anyone seen Joe? Yeah, good question. Other anti-Biden lefties also chimed in to rip the former vice president for not making public appearances during the crisis. Where is Joe Biden? Sean King asked. Joe Biden is secretly at work building test kits and a vaccine, which is why we rarely hear anything from him, Matt Stoller said. Here's one. More and more people are saying it. Where is Joe Biden? Nando says, seriously, where is Joe Biden? Biden gave a speech in the pandemic earlier in March where he criticized President Donald Trump for calling the coronavirus a foreign virus and noting that it originated in the Chinese province of Wuhan. Biden accused the president of trafficking in xenophobia in response to the virus. Biden is reportedly offering people a chance to video chat with him in a new fundraising initiative. A lot of people are concerned. It's not just about Joe Biden, his appearances. He's not doing anything. He apparently doesn't even know what to do. But he also criticized Trump over the travel ban with China, calling it xenophobic. Yet Dr. Fauci, who everyone seems to love, said Trump's travel ban went a long way. And guess what? Trump enacted this travel ban in January. He organized the task force in January. Many people in the media are trying to make it seem like Trump was doing literally nothing. But while the Democrats were freaking out over impeachment, Donald Trump was still moving forward. He created the coronavirus task force in January. What were the Democrats doing? Impeaching him. And now we can see what we can expect. Okay, look, if you voted for these Democrats in the House to enable this impeachment, guess what? Our efforts on the coronavirus may very well have been impeded because at a time when Trump should have been focusing on his task force, which he did set up. OK, I think it's fair to point out his attention was divided. He had to send attorneys to defend him in an impeachment that ultimately failed. That's what the Democrats were doing as the coronavirus crisis was continuing to escalate around the world. So let's jump over to common dreams, because there's a really interesting point brought up by Peter Dow. He said, people, I mean this sincerely. Where is Joe? Trump is in front of the cameras every day, reassuring people, putting on the appearance of leadership. Where is Biden? Why isn't he dominating the airwaves? So let's say you're a progressive. You don't like Joe Biden. You're probably laughing and enjoying the roller coaster ride down as Bernie Sanders has failed. If you're a Trump supporter, you're laughing at both. And if you're a Biden Democrat, I guess, if they apparently they exist, you're probably concerned that you bet on the wrong horse. Well, I guess a lot of these people thought Bernie Sanders was worse than Biden. They'd rather have sleepy, creepy Joe than a socialist. Fine. I guess I can, I guess that's fair. Well, now you realized you should have went for Buttigieg, man, because Joe Biden is nowhere to be seen. Jeremy Scahill says, we were all told that we desperately need Joe Biden's leadership and experience. Now all we have to do is find him. How can anyone who is excited about Joe Biden being the nominee defend his remarkable lack of anything even vaguely resembling leadership at this crucial moment? And staffers posting tweets on his feed doesn't count. Well, there are some people coming to his defense. Politico says, quote, there is no playbook for this. Biden trapped in campaign limbo. Let's be fair. We are facing trying and unprecedented times. Trump is now, for all intents and purposes, a wartime president. We're dealing with an invisible threat, a very serious threat. And around the world, people are locking down their borders, seizing supplies, and undermining the globalist trade policies they've been pushing for over a decade or longer. Now we're seeing people go right to the Trumpian argument. Control your borders, bring back manufacturing. It's exactly what Trump has been talking about. So for Trump, this has it's been really, really good for him in a lot of ways. Now, it's bad in a lot of ways. The GOP is concerned this really could upend things for him because the economy is taking a hit and economic forecast models show that in a bad economy, especially in quarter two of an election year, it's bad news for an incumbent president. But I think people will forgive him. I'm not going to blame him for this, in which case what we're seeing now is a couple things. Trump is able to enact exactly what he wanted to enact. He's closed the northern and southern borders. He's bringing back trade. He's got the Defense Production Act. He is snapping his fingers and getting the job done. Asylum seekers are being turned away. New immigrants are being turned away. And the courts, they're not going to do it. They're not going to stop him. They're holding off because we're in an emergency. It's allowing Trump to move forward with his agenda unimpeded. But also, it's proving to people around the world that his agenda, a large portion of it at least, was completely correct. This is the unprecedented problem Joe Biden is facing. What could he possibly say if he went on camera and said, look, the first thing he does is that Trump should have instituted that travel ban on China. Oh, I'm sorry. The orange man bad narrative doesn't work now. Dr. Fauci came out on MSNBC of all places and said, what Trump did shut down the borders has gone a long way. So Joe Biden tried criticizing that, only to have it thrown back in his face to look foolish. If he came out now and said, Trump is wrong about trade with China, we should bring our factories back, people would be like, are you nuts? We don't have medical supplies right now because of this. Even Bernie Sanders has called for invoking the Defense Production Act to get our medical supplies back. In that case, what are you going to do? Trump has been wrong since he ran in the first place. Sorry, it ain't going to work. And what if he came out now and says, we should absolutely not be securing our borders? Joe Biden, at the last debate, along with Bernie Sanders, said they wouldn't deport people. You want to tell Americans right now who overwhelmingly agree, including Democrats, agree with Trump's actions that he's taken so far, which includes closing the borders, that you want to reverse that? You are choosing to side with the tiny minority of the orange man bad people on the internet. I think Joe Biden knows this, and that's why he's saying nothing. His only option would be to speak up and say Trump is doing things wrong, but the majority of people like what Trump is doing. So the real foe that's being faced by Donald Trump is facing down, it's actually the media. So here's a story from CNN. Donald Trump starts 2020 in the worst polling position since Harry Truman. This is from CNN. And I'm going to throw some shade at CNN, but I do want to at least point out a few things that, are negatives towards Trump a little bit in selection before we get into the media nonsense. So Trump is at a popular polling position negative. I honestly don't trust the polls. I don't know which ones to trust. To be fair, if we have three polls, we have Morning Consult, Harris, and ABC, all saying the majority of Americans support Trump's endeavors, what he's doing on the coronavirus. That's three different polls. But we basically have every other political poll saying Trump is underwater in the popular vote. I just don't buy it. If Democrats are coming out now, if Trump is winning over the black community, how can these polls actually say this? It doesn't seem to make sense. Coronavirus upends nation. 3 in 4 Americans' lives will be changed by this. This is the ABC poll we saw just the other day, showing that 55% of Americans approve of this. And now we have the Morning Consult poll. Voters are warming to Trump's handling of the coronavirus. Net approval of Trump's response to the pandemic jumped 10 points in less than a week. Among conservatives, there is a concern that the coronavirus is an existential threat to Trump's reelection efforts. The coronavirus poses an existential threat to President Trump's 2020 reelection, campaign insiders and GOP operatives say. Quote, he's not running against Joe Biden. He's running against a virus and the collateral damage from that. That's according to Steve Bannon, saying the outbreak and its ripple effects were potentially was the most complex threat ever faced by the United States. You could have a financial crash, economic Great Depression, and a war against a bug all simultaneously. Today is November. Trump is going to be weighed and measured by the American people by how he handles the crisis. One Trump campaign operative was more blunt, saying, if he F's up the economic stimulus around the coronavirus, he loses. He said, Donald Trump's biggest hurdle to winning re-election has always been the economy. If the economy is going well and cruising along, he could have sailed to a re-election. If we hit that 20% unemployment mark as the Treasury is projecting, it's going to be hard to say that the economy is doing well. Polls so far offer a mixed bag. An ABC Ipsos poll survey found that 55% of Americans approve of Trump. So I'm showing you this because I think it would be unfair to just sit here and act like everything is, peaches and cream. Trump's going to sail in. And I've said for a long time, I've been bullish on Trump's re-election chances, but mostly because the economy was doing really, really well. But now there's something else that's going to play well for Donald Trump. We're in a crisis and you have a choice. Joe Biden, Donald Trump. I'm sorry, man. Even if Donald Trump does a bad job, you seriously think Joe Biden is going to do better? I'm sorry, man. Who's got confidence in that guy? He can't even speak up right now. Take a look at this. The White House Coronavirus Task Force Wikipedia page. And what does it say? The White House Coronavirus Task Force is a United States Department of State task force that coordinates and oversees the administration's efforts to monitor, prevent, contain, and mitigate the spread of the coronavirus disease, COVID-19. It was established on January 29, 2020. That's amazing because that's the time that they were impeaching the president. And it was in early February that we actually saw some resolution, and it all backfired on the Democrats. I was talking about impeachment, and now here we are. Most of my videos, it was like the Democrats, impeachment, the backfiring, what was going on. Now here we are. New Jersey, the state I live in, I'm in the Philly suburbs, has just instituted a stay-at-home order. That's it. We're quarantined. Apparently, there's only going to be essential stores open. They're saying that you can go and buy supplies. You can walk your dog. But for the most part, they're ordering everyone to stay inside. So we're being more reasonable than, say, China was. And I got to admit, I'm totally on board with doing the right thing to make sure we get through this because the stories we're hearing about, COVID-19 are horrifying. Well, Donald Trump has tried to offer up some optimism. He's talked about potential treatments, which are legitimate treatments. Notably, hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin combined in one French study, though it was a very small sample size, is promising. It shows that it really does have an impact in reducing the symptoms and clearing people of COVID-19. If the media would smear him for simply being optimistic, let me ask you, what would you prefer? For Donald Trump to get up at the podium and say the end is nigh, panic, run for your lives? Would you prefer him to say something like, we're going to get through this. We've got some great news. There's good things happening. We're hoping for the best. The FDA will be on this. Pick one. Now, I can be more reasonable. Would you prefer Trump to get up there and just bumble around and say, whatever? But here's what I see. If Trump went up at the podium and just started muttering incoherently like Joe Biden would, well, that's just a neutral, doesn't mean anything. Some people might get worried. Some people might disregard it. If Trump gets up there and tries to be optimistic, I can respect that. I'm not a fan of Trump misstating things, and he's getting quickly corrected on a lot of these things, but the guy's not perfect. Fine, I get it. He's Trump. But I'd prefer optimism. So I can respect that Donald Trump started the task force on January 29th. He then went on to downplay the seriousness of COVID-19. I personally think that was a mistake. I think now he's doing the right thing, and I think he's doing a pretty good job. But I also think it's fair to say that even if you think he was downplaying it, he definitely was still on top of doing something on January 29th by creating the task force. It could have been way later. I think the U.S. needs to do a lot better. But, what else can I really say in that regard? Well, the Washington Post would prefer it if you didn't hear from anyone at all. Writing, the media must stop live broadcasting Trump's dangerous, destructive coronavirus briefings. Who are you talking to? The majority of Americans approve of what Trump is doing. This is absolutely insane to me. But this shows us who Trump's real enemy is in this election cycle. And I don't think it's the virus. Because whether or not Trump does a good or bad job, people are relying on him to do the right thing, and most people agree he is. Now, the virus is a big threat for him, but the media is framing in such a way to try and cause him maximum damage, but the American people are not buying it right now. The shocking thing about these polls, it's that Democrats are flipping. Of course, the Republicans support Trump. They mostly do, and they mostly will. But his numbers are going up because Democrats are starting to come around. Around 30% of Democrats agree with Trump's handling of the coronavirus response. And we're seeing it from the governors of California and New York. So who does the media think they're talking to when they try and go after him like this? I guess they're grasping at whatever clickbait, rage bait they can get. The Washington Post's Margaret Sullivan writes, it's self-aggrandizement, it's media bashing, it's exaggeration and outright lies, and we need to stop it. It's dangerous, she says. You know what? I'm not interested. Now is not the time. Trump is not perfect, but he is the president we have. What are you going to do? You're going to try and complain and disrupt him when we're dealing with this crisis. Now, the best thing you can do is back off and give constructive criticism, not threaten to shut him down or accuse him of all these bad things, or worse still, what CNN did. Trump address sparks chaos as coronavirus crisis deepens. There's literally nothing the guy can do. I'm sorry. There's literally nothing Trump could do. And I think we all get it. I've never been a big fan of the guy, but right now I'm not so concerned about Trump's character and his domestic policy positions. I care about the coronavirus, and I care about us getting through this, being safe, fixing the economy. When Donald Trump came out and addressed the nation saying, listen, we're going to take some measures. He said we're going to ban travel from Europe. CNN called it sparking chaos. So what should he have done? Well, when Trump was saying everything's going to be okay, they accused him of ignoring the problem. A rock in a hard place. No matter what he does, the media will continue to bash him. Over on Twitter, Donald Trump said, hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin taken together have a real chance to be one of the biggest game changers in the history of medicine. The FDA has moved mountains. Thank you. Hopefully they will be put in use immediately. People are dying. Move fast, and God bless everyone. He then tagged the FDA and people from the CDC and the DHS. Well, what Trump is saying is true. It's promising. We don't know yet, but Trump is trying to at least keep people positive. Hey, morale booster, right? It's not perfect, but people need hope. They need to believe that this will come to an end, that we are working towards solution, and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. When people feel like there is no solution, there is no light, they panic, and they decide to operate on an every man for themselves mentality. But when Trump comes out and says, guess what? We've got promising news. This is good news. It's not perfect. There's no guarantees. But it shows everyone, here's the target. Stay focused. This is what we're striving for. According to TechCrunch, a French study finds anti-malarial and antibiotic combo could reduce COVID-19 duration. We can see this graph, and we can see the control group, the hydrochloroquine group, and the combination of hydrochloroquine and azithromycin. When people were put on azithromycin and hydrochloroquine, from day 2 to day 3, a major percentage of people in the study were apparently cleared. But TechCrunch does go on to say, these results represent a limited study with a smaller number of patients, but they are promising, especially when combined with early reports from patients in China with the same treatment options. Researchers globally are testing a number of potential treatments. There are no confirmed effective treatments specifically for COVID-19 to date, But regulators and medical researchers everywhere are working hard to get through the process of testing and approvals in search of something that can at least reduce the duration and severity of symptoms in patients. Now, as we often see, the media will report something. Case in point, TechCrunch said, this is promising. They straight up said, they are promising. It's a limited study. They are promising. So Trump tweets out the information. Taken together, have a real chance. These are game changers. It's promising. What does the media do? Trump peddles unsubstantiated hope in dark times. There is nothing the man could do. So what am I supposed to believe? Not the media. That's why I don't care anymore. I'm just so over all of the nonstop screeching. We are not in a position to play these games anymore, media. Now is the time to pull back and say we are leading a concerted effort together as Americans to get through this one. I'm going to be trapped in my house. I hope I hope they're willing to take the same precautions and sacrifice in the same way for the betterment of each and every one of us. So Donald Trump is a bit optimistic. Now, you shouldn't go and take those drugs for sure. You need a doctor to prescribe it. And that means we need the FDA to go through what the dosage is and how it's going to be applied. But we are apparently going to be taking data from other countries. That's one thing Trump has said. Well, CNN doesn't like the fact that Trump is going to come out and say, we're going to do better. We're going to make it through this one. What is a president supposed to do? I mean, when Trump came out, Dana Bash of CNN praised him. Yet not everyone at CNN seems to share that sentiment. But most Americans do. And so I'll tell you what, as we see over and over again, Americans are not trusting of the press. This is why. I know we're preaching to the choir. Everybody sort of gets it. That's why you're watching my channel, right? Because we all get it. Joe Biden's gone missing. He is not somebody that we can rely on in times of crisis. He doesn't know how to use the internet. He mumbles incoherently. The race is over. Trump is running now against the virus, but more importantly, against a media that would take anything he does and make it negative. When Trump launches the task force and freezes travel to China, they called him a xenophobe. They ran story after story saying he was overreacting and travel restrictions won't stop this. Then we started seeing every other country do the same thing. Then they shut up. Then a story comes out about a potential treatment. And when Trump tweets it out, they come after him again. Now they're saying, just shut off the press, shut off the press. You know what? You want to know why I think the Washington Post says the media must stop live broadcasting Trump's dangerous, destructive coronavirus briefings? I don't think it has anything to do with anything this woman said. I think it's simple. Dana Bash of CNN said, this is the leader people need right now. Uh-oh, that means Trump's going to win. He's winning over people. The majority of Americans are now agreeing with him, saying he's doing the right thing, and that's good news for his reelection. Well, they can never let a good crisis go to waste. So they try to smear the president, and when that didn't work, they said, you know what? Just shut his events down. Yeah, because we'd apparently be better off knowing nothing and not hearing from the coronavirus task force. The media is despicable. They're absolutely despicable. Now, there's many people who do a great job. I obviously use them as sources, so there's a lot we can count on. But there are a lot of corrupt individuals working in media, and I don't know what you do about it. I mean, they're allowed to say the stupid things they say, but I just look at this and I see people who want to just throw the wrench in the spokes. They don't care about the rest of us. Orange Man is bad, period, and we will obstruct him by any means necessary. In the end, who would you vote for? Missing, sleepy, creepy Uncle Joe? He's gone. So what's your choice? I don't know what the media is even trying to do at this point. Cater to the, 35% of Americans who are now opposed, or it's actually around 43, I think, who don't like Trump's job on the coronavirus. Thanks for helping make things worse. All right, look, I don't think the guy's perfect. I didn't vote for him. All I know is we have bigger things to worry about. I'll see you all in the next segment at 6 p.m. youtube.com/TimCastNews. It is a different channel. Thanks for hanging out.